Brian Walshe is accused of killing his wife Ana Walshe, and his murder trial begins tomorrow. He has already admitted to lying to police and also moving Ana's body after she died, but he still denies any involvement in her actual murder. Brian admitted that he intentionally interfered with the investigation into his wife's disappearance, and also that he disposed of her body in various dumpsters across Massachusetts. And with his jury selected and the trial beginning tomorrow, let's get into the details of what exactly happened. The details on this case are disturbing. That is your warning. Prosecutors allege that Brian killed and dismembered his wife Ana after learning she was having an affair. He faced an order to repay $450,000 after he was caught selling a fraudulent Andy Warhol painting. And Ana had a nearly $3 million life insurance policy where Brian was the sole beneficiary. On New Year's Day 2023, Ana goes missing, and nobody reports her disappearance until her employer calls in for a well-being check. When police arrive and they begin interviewing Brian, he immediately starts lying to them. He's like, yeah, Ana was called into her Washington, D.C. real estate job on New Year's Day at 6 a.m. He said that Ana kissed him goodbye, took a rideshare to the airport, and he hadn't heard from her since. He also said that one of his and Ana's 3 children had taken Brian's phone and hidden it for 2 days. So he didn't realize that she wasn't communicating. The lies were not good lies. Police initially treated Ana Walshe like a missing person, and they went to try to verify some of Brian's claims. And they learned that there was no record of Ana taking any rideshare or ever arriving at the airport. They head back to the Walshe residence to gather more data, and they find some other suspicious things. They peek in the back of Brian Walsh's car, and his seats are folded down, and there's plastic lining the trunk. Brian allows the officers to walk through the house and basement, and they don't see anything that obviously stands out. But they are not as thorough as they would have been with a true search warrant. They end up interviewing Brian several times to try to get his version of events straight. He talks about it like it's any other day. He woke his kids up around 7 a.m. A babysitter came. He went to get milk and orange juice. He went to visit his mother, but because he didn't have a phone, of course, he got lost on the way and he can't account for a bunch of missing time. The next day, the police continue their investigation. They issue a statement about Ana's disappearance. They also call in the Massachusetts State Police. And if you followed me for the Karen Reed trial, every single person will sound familiar. When the cops return, they notice that the liner that was in the trunk of Brian Walsh's car is gone. The car itself had fresh vacuum marks, and Brian Walshe said that he threw the liner in the trash. It is unclear if the police even attempted to look in the trash after that. Inside Brian Walsh's car, they do find a Lowe's receipt and also a phone. And Brian says the phone belongs to his 6-year-old kid. And unbeknownst to the police, after they leave, Brian goes and visits another dumpster. He took a trip out to this dumpster at the corner of his mother's apartment complex. The next morning, a massive search begins for Ana, and a huge amount of government resources are put toward finding her. People and canines from all of these different units are dispatched. At this point in their statements, the police say that Brian Walshe is cooperating with them, and he gets a little bit comfortable, and he agrees to a consent search of a couple different devices. This will ultimately be his downfall. The next day, police start reviewing the extraction on Brian Walsh's phone, and Trooper Garino finds searches on December 27th related to the best and worst states to get divorced. He also finds a search at 4:55 a.m. January 1st on how to dispose of a body. At that point, Garino stopped searching. This was a consent search. He reported what he found to Brian Tully, Michael Proctor, Buchanan, and others, and they decided this was a good time to get a warrant. And investigators were still trying to verify Brian Walsh's version of events, and they were running into some serious discrepancies. At the time of Ana's disappearance, Brian Walshe was on home confinement awaiting sentencing for the 2016 art fraud scheme. Shortly after he and Ana were married, he sold these 2 replicas of Andy Warhol paintings as if they were authentic. And while he waited for his sentencing, Brian Walshe was required to report his schedule to an officer. And on January 1st, he had told that officer that from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m. he was going to drop his mother off after a recent cataract surgery, which is completely different from this version of events that he gave to police, where he's buying milk and then driving to see his mom in Swampscott and no mention of cataract surgery. And in reality, Brian was doing a whole third thing, which is a bunch of shady stuff. Here's a list of the suspicious searches that Brian made on January 1st, starting at 4:55 a.m. And remember that initially he told police that Ana kissed him goodbye at 6 a.m. and left. How long before a body starts to smell? 10 ways to dispose of a body if you really need to. Is he looking for a BuzzFeed article? Can you throw away body parts? How long does DNA last? Is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash? You can pause to read if you want. On the 2nd, Brian said that he was going to leave to drop his kids off at school and then leave again to pick them up, and that was all of the travel that he would be doing that day. When he told police where he was, he said that he took his kid to get ice cream. And it turns out the ice cream thing was true, but Brian left off a bunch of other suspicious stuff he was doing. He searched hacksaw, best tool to dismember. Again, just truly disturbing stuff here. And remember the phone that was found in the Volvo that Brian said belonged to his son? They were able to get the location data from that phone, and it revealed some interesting things, like that he went to Lowe's and purchased a 5-gallon bucket, a hacksaw, a tie Tyvek soup, towels and rags, trash bags, cleaning product, and also 13 different types of hydrogen peroxide. All of this on the same day that Ana went missing. They also learned that not only did Brian go get ice cream with his son, but he also went to Home Goods to buy some new rugs, and then went to Home Depot for even more cleaning supplies, mops, a 5-gallon bucket, tarps, splash-resistant goggles, a hatchet, a soft grip utility knife, and 2 12-pound bags of baking soda. The buckets, the mops. I don't know what that is. A shop vac, maybe? I just deeply disturbed myself thinking about why he might need a shop vac. If you know what this is, tell me. Here's another image. This is a little better, maybe. 7 days after Ana's disappearance, police come to the Walshe residence with a search warrant. The warrant allows them to search the premise and also seize some electronic devices. So they take 3 MacBooks, 3 iPads, and 2 iPhones. And they ask Brian about the very suspicious searches on his devices. And I'm not exaggerating, he blames his 6-year-old. He's like, my kid is very smart. And the police are like, but you think your 6-year-old searched for this? Walsh's attorney was also there, and at one point they suggested that maybe Ana did some of these searches, and the police pointed out that the majority of them happened after her disappearance. Brian Walshe said she was gone by 6 a.m. When they search the basement, they find multiple areas that test positive for blood. They also found an unopened tarp that matched the plastic in Brian's trunk, as well as a broken and bloodied knife. And later that day, the probable cause affidavit for Brian Walsh's arrest is submitted, and Brian's arrest is not for his wife's murder. Instead, he's arrested for lying to the police. Meanwhile, the police lock in on these various dumpsters where Brian Walshe is seen disposing of stuff. They want to find them before the trash inside is destroyed and possibly Ana's remains with it. And they're too late for the 3 dumpsters that he visited on Tuesday the 3rd. But Brian had also visited the dumpster at his mother's apartment complex, where he's seen on security camera disposing of a bag of something. They were able to locate the truck that the dumpster had been emptied into before the trash was incinerated. And in it they found Ana's boots, her clothing, her Prada purse, her vaccine card, foreign currency, a hacksaw with bone fragments, a hatchet, heavy-duty cutting shears, and a hammer, cleaning supplies, slippers, a Tyvek suit, a blood-soaked rug with human tissue with a substance consistent with baking soda. Remember that he bought 24 pounds of baking soda and also multiple new rugs, and a metal bar with Gucci imprinted on it consistent with a necklace that Ana wore. I believe they're referring to this necklace right here. Ana had been involved in a months-long affair, and prosecutors allege that Brian Walshe had found out. Ana had spent both Thanksgiving and Christmas with her affair partner, and the day after Christmas, Brian Walsh's mother hired a private investigator to look into Ana, what she was doing, what was going on. In the month before Ana died, Brian was routinely using Instagram to look up one of her male friends. Maybe Brian saw that Ana was desirable to other men, that she had a successful career, while he was awaiting his art fraud sentencing that was likely going to lead to prison time. Between Ana's infidelity and his own looming sentence, he had both a wife problem and a cash problem. He could have potentially owed up to $1 million in fines, and her life insurance policies were worth $2.7 million, which he was the sole beneficiary to. Walsh's lawyers claim that his family was wealthy and he wasn't hurting for any money. They also claim that he learned about Ana's affair during discovery for the trial and didn't know about it before she died. And of course, now Brian has pled guilty to 2 of the 3 charges against him. He pleaded guilty to misleading police and also the improper conveyance of a human body, his wife's body. He's still pleading not guilty to the first-degree murder charge. He wasn't offered any kind of deal in exchange for the plea. This is purely a strategic move on Walshe and his counsel's part. When he entered that guilty plea, that was actually the first time that Brian Walshe admitted publicly that his wife is dead. Until then, he had maintained that she was missing. His attorneys might have been worried that if he kept denying that he lied to the police and kept denying that he moved Ana's body, which he had obviously done, that a jury would find him so incredible that they'd never believe him that he didn't kill Ana. Do I personally think he killed her? They're going to have to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that he actually committed the crime himself. He could say something like, she fell down the stairs. It was tragic, and then I didn't know what to do. I thought you guys were going to come after me because of my art fraud charges, so I did what I thought was best and threw her in the trash. He could say there was a fight in the heat of passion. He could say somebody else came in and did it. It doesn't matter. There was some speculation that the change of plea might make it so some of the most damning evidence against Brian Walshe can't come in. I do not think that's the case. I've heard the argument for that. I don't agree with it. The thought is that some of the more damning evidence, like the searches, really go to the conveying of the body and the misleading the police rather than the murder itself. But there's this thing called consciousness of guilt. Essentially, any actions or behaviors that Brian Walshe was engaged in that a normal, innocent person would not be doing could be evidence of consciousness of guilt, like hiding someone's remains or searching how to do that, or all of the lying and misleading investigator. And sometimes there's a jury instruction to clarify what this means to the jury before they hear this evidence. The jury for this case is fully selected, and the opening statements will begin tomorrow. That's everything I can fit in this video. Love you guys. Drink water. Bye!